All right, welcome back. Hope everyone had an amazing Christmas and post-Christmas days. I always get kind of depressed after Christmas. Christmas, I don't know. I love Christmas. So there's all this anticipation, and you put up lights and you put up the tree, and then I don't really like the present stuff so much, but it's nice when the presents are finally wrapped and under the tree and there's all this excitement and the kids are excited and you're cooking up a storm, and it's like it's all great until the hangover, I guess. And I don't mean like a hangover from alcohol, since I quit drinking and have remained off the sauce for almost 2 months now. The hangover of the Christmas hangover, like it's all over now and it's kind of sad. And then the new year's about to start, and that's kind of always a little daunting because there's, I always have these big ideas and these grand plans for like how I'm going to do better. And then I usually sabotage myself. So, there's all this that goes. Anyways, I hope you had a nice Christmas. I was going to talk a bit about Fargo. Kind of the two shows. I'm watching a few shows right now. I'll go through those real quick. I kept trying to get into Murder at the End of the World because it sort of felt like a And Then There Were None, like an Agatha Christie retelling in a way for the modern era. But I can't do it. I'm 4 episodes in and I'm just like, really not that invested. So I'm watching Slow Horses. That just wrapped up. Great 3rd season. My only problem with Slow Horses is that it's so short. Every season's so short. There's barely enough time to like get the story going before it's over. And it's so great though. Gary Oldman remains one of the finest actors working today and one of the finest actors of the last few decades. But I don't know. It just wrapped its 6th and final episode of season 3, and it was a great ride. Very action-packed season. Big shootouts at the end for almost like 2 episodes. We got like almost straight shootouts, and that was fun. That was a little change of pace for the show. As far as spy shows go, Slow Horses is kind of exactly what I want. It's funny. There's some mystery. There's lots of that thriller side of things. Good spy stuff. Fargo, though, is what I want to talk about. Fargo also just aired its latest episode. There's only a couple left in season 5. I think that I continue to have mixed feelings about this season. I think Juno Temple as Dorothy and John Hamm as Roy Tillman, the constitutional sheriff, and everybody else. I mean, the cast is doing a great job. I guess my problem with this season is it feels more cartoony than any season before it. Like, I keep thinking about the previous episode, and there's the whole scene with the really outrageous husband of Indira, the police woman. Her husband doesn't work. He just sits around practicing golf all day. He's just a total piece of shit. And I just think they almost take it too far, to where it just seems so outlandish and ridiculous that you almost can't believe it. And there's, one thing that my creative writing teacher in high school, when I wrote something that I'd actually seen happen in real life, and he was like, it doesn't seem real. And I was like, well, it's real. It's actually something that happened. And he said, well, it doesn't matter if it's true. It's whether, it comes across as true that matters. And I feel like you can get away with a more subtle presentation, right, of this golfing slacker husband. It just seems like, I guess there probably are people like that out there. Absolutely. It's true. But it just comes across as too cartoonish. And her dealing with it, putting up with it, is hard for me to reconcile with her character, who's quite tough and speaks her mind, but somehow just lets this guy, be a failed drummer, a failed golfer, and never work, and like then talk to her that way about how he takes care of everything. It's a little over the top. And it just feels like it's almost not necessary in this season, because we already have Tillman, who we really find the extent of his abusiveness in this episode. I'm also having a little hard time reconciling his character. There's a whole scene earlier in the season where he's like, yeah, he's talking to this young couple, and the guy has hit his wife. And he's like, yeah, you're the master of the house, and you're sometimes you have to put your woman in her place, but you don't want to take enjoyment out of it. It's not, and he's like teaching him all this stuff about how to, it's an asshole thing. The whole thing's horrible, but he's preaching restraint, right? And then we learn that he's just like this, like we see the photos of Dorothy, and we see what happened to his previous wife, Linda, who more than likely he killed. And it's just like, well, I don't know. Like, it's horrible, and he's clearly just an awful villain, but I wonder if they needed to take it so far in this season. Again, like the golfing husband, you can do a lot with a lot less. I guess this is a little hard to put into words. It's not that I don't think that there aren't horrible wife beaters out there like that, but this character probably could have been a domineering, possessive, abusive, etc., etc., etc. guy without, taking it as far as they have. And they showed all of this in a clever scene. It was a puppet scene, they used puppetry to sort of show the backstory of Dorothy and Roy. And it's probably good they did, because it would have been a really hard thing to watch, play out. And she was like 15 when they first started, when he first started raping her. I don't know. I'm a little, I guess, like, one of the things that made the first season so good was the fact that the bad guy wasn't just, he was a monster, right? But it was almost like he was a prankster demon or something, right? He wasn't, he was over the top, but there was a sort of dark comedic element to his character. And that worked really well for the show. The main character, Martin Freeman's character, his monstrousness, his wickedness sort of blossoms throughout the first season. And it's often, his weakness that causes him to be such a vile human being in the end. But it's subtle. Like, I know he kills his wife, like, in the first episode, but it's still sort of subtle. Like, he was driven to it in a way, and doesn't excuse it, but you see, like, his humiliation and his unmanning, his constant diminishment by everyone around him. And that's what provokes him, his emasculation at his, his wife's constant nagging and insults, and he snaps. And then it's his journey after he snaps, his journey of deceit and betrayal and all the other horrible things that he ends up engaging in that make his character complicated and interesting. And in season 5, I guess Dorothy is a complicated and interesting character. Like, she is on the run, and you certainly don't blame her for it, but she's also putting her loved ones at risk, and she's keeping things from them and lying, and that's sort of selfish, and I guess that gives her a little bit of depth. But Tillman as a villain isn't really... The more monstrous they make him, the less interesting he becomes, I guess, is the best way of putting it. He becomes less and less of a compelling figure, the more he becomes just this sort of like stereotypical wife-beating, MAGA, rural cowboy sheriff. And it just becomes more of a caricature in a cartoon show rather than, an interesting and complex villain. I'm much more interested in Munch, the sin eater, the like immortal sin eater who's going to be gunning for Gator now after everything that happened with the old lady he was living with. He feels much more like a Fargo monster to me, right? His motivations are opaque. His history is mysterious. He doesn't operate by the same rules that everybody else operates by, including people who basically live and operate outside the law, right? Tillman and Jason Leigh's character, Lorraine Lyon, they all operate outside the law. They make the law. They've created their own kingdoms that they rule over, or they lord over. But Munch lives outside of even that. He is the complete wild card. He is the prankster demon, though not a very funny one. And to me, that's essential Fargo right there. His character that you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody around him knows what's going to happen. Whereas everything else feels a little bit less Fargo. It sort of feels like they're trying to make a lot of statements this season. And I don't know that Fargo is at its best when it's preachy or when it's, showing the uncomplicated but black and white good versus evil shit, you know? I don't think that's when it's at its strongest. So I still enjoy it. I'm still enjoying the season. There's a lot of great stuff. I did think, you know, I won't lie, when she first showed up at Camp Utopia and the puppet stuff, I thought, this is stupid. This is so tonally wrong for this show. Then when I found out it was a dream, I was like, okay, that's much better. And that puppet show was a clever way of showing the backstory. But then I was like, did they really need a dream sequence? This felt like a filler episode in a lot of ways. Did we even really need more of her backstory? It was pretty clear what happened. So, I don't know. Overall, I have very mixed feelings about this season in general, and it's kind of the direction the show has taken. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Peace.